I am sure you too have probably struggled with some problematic with post services and organized gangstalking. With different kind of experiences the last few years, I have gathered different types of situations where I've been noticing that postmen, and a lot of them are spiritless, and I can often see that they are spiritless by looking at their eye. You can see the AI, and you can see there is no spirit there. And I've been noticing that they have been used increasingly for harassing, gangstalking, and targeting. Right? It has been about covert and overt harassment. And they are part of the tormentors who are, actively working to make our lives here a living hell by creating more torture and by being used to cross boundaries, which is a traumatic experience, and which is part of also the MK Ultra programs. I mean, the MK Ultra programs are basically about violating your boundaries in every possible way, that exists. So sometimes harassment is obvious, and other times it's going to be more subtle. Sometimes it's going to be sneaky, the way it tries to get in or what it tries to trigger in our corners of realities. And a great portion of the harassment here is happening on a covert level. And for this reason, it tends to be difficult to explain it to beings who have not awakened to what this reality is really about and how targeted they are themselves. And only original sparks are truly targeted. Now you find a lot of spiritless models who appear to be targeted, but it's just to create more bounding models for us to relate with. And it's also part of how it's programmed here and designed. These relationships, that we have that are really impersonal, that have to do with different matrix systems, such as the post offices or administration offices, these kind of, energy that are often governmental related as well, I find are usually a much lower frequencies than other propositions out there in the game. That's why sometimes for deliveries, you may look in other kind of solutions than the national governmental proposition, and it's going to be sometimes more bearable to be dealing with. Right? You might have found yourself, it probably happened to all of us, visiting postal offices and being faced with a queue that just appear when you're arriving or just a little bit before, and it's just there for handling your time and surrounding you with these simulation conversations that we can hear in these kind of situations and set up, that are low frequency conversation with sometimes suggestions that are placed there just to keep us plugged into that worry programming, or just the manifestation from our own skills and manifestation abilities, just by focusing on what we are hearing around us. Drama can be organized as well in the office during the time we are visiting. It's going to be occasional targeting sometimes, depending who you have to be dealing with in the postal services. And with different big platforms such as Amazon, you're also going to notice that, for me, there are different drivers, but only one leaves, feels like he's programmed to leave messages that the package is dropped with his very creepy voice. And I've only picked up the phone once or twice with him, and because my phone is usually off, because this is a measure I took in 2020 to migrate most of my work on my computer and only use my phone when I go outside for Google Map, So it's not triggering for me if I consult my voice message and I just need to delete the message that he left with this creepy voice. Now, if it's another Amazon driver, it's not the creepy voice and it's a total different entity, but you will feel who is there for harassment purpose and stalker purposes as well. And it's even if you ask them not to do that, they continue, they pretend they have to do that, they continue with their habit, even if you ask them not to do it, right? It's to perpetuate this entrapment system that, it wants to make you feel like you're trapped here, that you're trapped in your life, that you are trapped in certain situations, that you cannot escape, that you cannot create a different experience for yourself. This driver managed to get me to pick up the phone once when my phone was on and I was waiting for a phone call. So the matrix time his interaction exactly at that moment, and I was misled to think that it was the call that I was waiting for. And obviously it's not a nice feeling because you get this entrapment feeling. Right? So it's really about a violation of our boundaries on a regular basis and invading our spaces or intruding. Other examples that I'm going to share here are about, one time, quite recently, the amount of gangstalking reaching me through postal services has greatly reduced since I put into place a sort of solution. But recently there was this little thing where when I came back from the garden where I parked my car, I saw that there was a package on the table. And that means that the delivery man had to open the fence, which was not locked, but which was closed. And that is a boundary violation, especially since I took measure and I put 2 signs in front of the door. So right in front of the door, you have just redirecting them to the sign that is on the left, that they are invited to place all the packages automatically without knocking in the wooden box. Right. Since that is into place, gangstalking has greatly reduced. It still happened, but it has become way more bearable. There was a time when it was increasing, and getting a bit out of control. It felt like a lot of matrix activity right in front of the door, right in front of the entry. When I found the package, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just to disturb you, to make you worry or aware that anything can happen. And even worse, I remember now a time where the package was not left outside. There was a time where I was inviting postmen to put the packages there, but I don't want them to enter the property anymore, knowing that they are mostly harassers. And one time I found a package on the table of the living room. So it meant that was a time when they were still leaving the package, I think, outside at under the porch. But that meant that he opened the back door at the time when I wasn't there, because I discovered the package only when he was already gone. So of course, easy solutions are just to close these doors so they don't have any mean of access there. And that's what I did recently with the fence. I was liking to leave the door open there just in case, I would just not find my keys. And that specific episode happened at the time when I was greatly reducing the impact of the gangstalking that was taking place. It was like an escalation before it really calmed down, right? And other times, a few times, there different delivery men entered my hallway without my permission, and I had to drive them back to the entry point of the door. And it was an interesting experience for me because I noticed that I wasn't freezing like I used to freeze when you are in shock in front of what the matrix system has in stock for you today. So it was a great practice of boundary setting, right? And as soon as you ask them, you command them in the energy, they do it. They have no other choice. In a lot of situations, you can command them to stop invading your boundaries, and that should be listened to somehow in the energetic of what's going on. But I remember when it happened with the boundary violation in the hallway, I've noticed that my nervous system was under attack. Like that's what's going on as well. Now, I have also noticed that there are specific companies that have much more aggressive energies than others. So I did stop to buy certain products from certain companies that I stopped all affiliation with. Or also there was some specific clients who were sending me their drivers, and it was the worst mail service I could have imagined. And these engineered clients were also used as handler in a recurrent manner. You will notice that there are some post office delivery men that are making more agitation just in front of your house than others. There are some that are really quiet and respectful and they don't cause any problem or disturbance, and others that you just feel the energy just coming aggressively at you. Sometimes they knock with insistence. And I also had police officer coming with that energy, just waking me up in the middle of the night and knocking at the door. That's a traumatizing frequency. And I didn't answer to them, and they ended up by leaving and coming back and playing that game again. And I still didn't answer until they came back at a decent time when I was ready to be dealing with them. But it is an attack on the nervous system. It is also playing on that programming that you have to answer commands, you have to answer the door. What if it's important? It's rarely important. People showing up at your front door. There is 90% of, simulation, agitation that you can do without. It's also playing the same kind of happening is taking place when you are feeling like you have to answer your phone, who is calling, you're not sure of the number, and you will notice people who leave a message or who don't leave a message, and what they are used to trigger. Clear people tend to be leaving a message or just sending a text if they cannot reach you directly. So you can call them back or get in touch with them on your own terms. Right. And sometimes you feel like you also have to answer the door because you don't want to have like the paper that they leave and getting your package in a postal governmental office, right? So it's a kind of blackmail kind of frequency that's happening. Most gangstalkers are not spirited. They are sent by the hologram to have a specific effect on our consciousness and on our minds. It's about degrading, distracting, disturbing, causing confusion, or sometimes get you to drop in frequency. And some gangstalker, it's about getting you dissociated and activate your dark SSP or monarch programming. And we all have to navigate that dark programming that is set up inside and gaining mastery over our reactions and the anger it can trigger in us when our boundaries are extremely violated like they are sometimes. Right, these covert methods and these overt methods are making us understand that we are gangstalked and it has a specific effect on our psyche. We can be harassed nicely or not so nicely, more aggressively. It really depends what the programs have in store for us today. You will notice that some of your gangstalkers are playing more on the nice template, right? It's not always going to be about getting these mean, aggressive, rude, cruel template. Sometimes it's going to be more complex to identify as well, because you have to deal with a mirror image that has to do with a cover story, a surface story, but underneath it's about harassment and being gangstalked. Some gangstalkers might even smile and pretend to be harmless, trying to engage you in the interface with them. And it is challenging because you know, as soon as you engage with the interface, it's harder to resist and uncover the full stories that are happening, that are sold to us, and the cloaking. Sometimes they also try to play on our good hearts to access our compassion, energy through their victim stories, and a lot of handlers are doing that, trying to make you feel guilty or these kind of things. And your kindness or your politeness programming might very well be used to cross your boundaries even further. It's about not falling for the mirroring that is happening and this interest that is they are falsely interested in us. They are just there for infiltration and distraction mainly. So as we keep on denumbing and deprogramming, we might be perceiving more and more the hostile energy in our neighborhood coming from the neighboring houses. And it's also because where we live is generally controlled. Most of the times it's arranged by the program, and they have gangstalking activity ready for us in most of the places out there. And if they're not, they are setting them up as soon as we have made the choice. But if we live somewhere for a long time, there are different restriction measures. They also install device and things, cables and device right around our houses to decrease the frequency and just kind of contain and beam you directly. How convenient is that? Sometimes our minds are controlled as well to choose different places that have easier access to us than others. And as you know, a lot of non-player characters can also be accessed to get you stuck somewhere longer than you would want to be. Listening to them for too long, you know, unable sometimes to extract from the situation. Sometimes you even are finding yourself asking questions, even if you know it's it's a engineer situation. It can play on your politeness programming or many different types of programming. And you can feel the boxing even when you're right in the middle of it, but you're not able always to extract from it as quickly as you would want. And this is valid for many other types of situation where we feel there is an entrapment part, we are being taken hostage with people who are, running their unconscious patterns. Yeah, feeling hostage of the conversation is pretty common. As long as you have an entanglement there, a contract, whether it's financial, a family contract, or whatever entanglement they can find to feel like, to get you stuck in unpleasant situation until you're able to get yourself unstuck. And the reason why we are not able to extract from a situation comes directly from our MK Ultra programming. And if we work through it, we become able to extract from whatever is being set up for us here. There is a solution for everything. And there is healing for the most excruciating suffering. Healing is also connected to knowledge and to the truth, and the truth protect. And the truth can be enough. Sometimes if it's all that you have, if you don't relapse in your Stockholm syndrome and different things, if you know and stand by the truth, it can be really powerful and make you very decided about not accepting abuse no more in your life and just working on overcoming this heavy programming that love is pain or different things like that ties us way too much to different handlers in our lives. With this journey of deprogramming, I have dropped a great deal of people-pleasing programming, but there's still so much work. And also dropped a great deal of politeness programming. I find it easier with people who are spiritless and who are obvious gangstalkers. But I remember a time when I was still smiling at them, but it's something you deprogram from, or even choosing the people you want to say hi to. Maybe you don't want to say hi. Sometimes the program plays on that, or sometimes you have people who are timed to do a very subtle form of invasion. For example, being just right there in front of your house when you open the door, right? And just passing through that is a little slightly intrusive, and then saying hi, but you don't have to answer to them, right? And there was a time when I didn't feel like I had this space within, like I feel I have now, right? I don't feel always obligated to be welcoming for others, especially the ones who are spiritless. So the designated area in front of my house where the delivery people can be leaving, packages for me has been really limiting my direct interactions and my personal interactions on a daily basis with them. Rarely they do find excuses not to listen to the instructions and to cross the boundaries, but it is rare. It is maybe 5%, which give me a lot more peace than what I was used to. And the door is far enough that I don't really hear the agitation that is present at some moments of the day as well. many people are being used to cross our boundaries. It's also sometimes to trigger anger. It's a form of depleting ourselves to be angry. But we don't have this energy left to accept if you really direct constructively, but it's still a depletion, right? Or to create some form of suffering as well that has an emotional tie or these kind of things. I have also found some solutions in dropping package with non-governmental drop points and non-governmental delivery service that are not the national postal services. So that can be helpful and raise the frequency a little bit. We generally have different points around us, so we can scan and test which ones are the most friendly. Sometimes they also close different points that you were used to be going to, and you have to, repattern. And I sometimes have these in one of my messages that I have with myself, because I tend to forget also about the different options that I'm working with due to the memory wiping, So having it written somewhere can be a reminder about our different options as well. Sometimes gangstalking is also being used to have an effect on how we organize our time and our day, and in what order we design things. We also find a lot of non-player characters, spiritless and backdrop, who are programmed to request and demand our time and our energy. And that's something also that a lot of spirited handlers do as well. And you have to excavate some of your programming. There is a lot of programming, like sacrifice programming is one of them. Answering the needs of others, assisting people who are harassing and gangstalking us is one of the big programs we have to overcome here. It's very strong and very linked to MK Ultra. Right. In the past, quite a few years ago, I had an agreement with a neighboring house that if I wasn't there, then the package could be left there because they were often home. But I quickly became to feel stuck with that agreement, which was an entanglement because these neighbors are spiritless and also used for distraction and unpleasant to be dealing with. So I just changed the way to operate. Now, sometimes you have delivery men just delivering their package in the wrong address, especially if you have different letter after your number or these kinds of configuration, right? And it's interesting to see what the program has in store for you as well there, because, for example, I get mail and letter, so I don't always feel like I have to, it's not, I don't always feel like it's my responsibility to deal with this lost mail that is purposely put in my mailbox as a distraction mean. But sometimes they play on that, and they deliver just enormous package that I have no choice than to, what am I going to do with that? Or they deliver sometimes something that is for an animal, playing on programming, different kind of programming as well. So it's very interesting to see how the program adjusts to your decisions as well when you don't agree to and don't consent to do certain things, and it tries to make you comply to adopt different behaviors, right? But for this package, for example, that had to do with a veterinary product, I just put it on my near where I put things that I need to be taking to my car, and I don't feel like I have to drop it quickly. I just drop it when it's the right time, and that doesn't feel like a burden then, or like a frustrating process. You might also have found yourself at the door of the post office with them closing at random times just when you were visiting them. That's also part of the targeting programs, unfortunately. Now in Belgium, at least, they have evening deliveries sometimes that can be a little annoying, especially if you're in the middle of a video call or these kind of things, and you get this unusual evening matrix activity just in front of your door. And it really depends how close also you are from, from the place where this activity is going on in front of your house. Other types of gangstalkings that have to do with noise disturbance are sirens that sometimes they are activated just to pass right in front of your door of your house. One time I also had a backdrop, knocking at the door at early morning on a Saturday morning to ask what kind of plant is planted in front of the house, right? So only a gangstalker would do that. Only someone sent by the programs, right? With the contactless habits from the engineered operations in 2020 and 2021, new habits have been taken in terms of deliveries, and some of them are to our advantage because drivers have been getting used to people not wanting direct contact with them. So they can make all different kinds of assumptions why you don't want contact with them, but it's more common now than it was before. Something also very interesting was, here in Belgium, they collect some tip at the end of the year, the post delivery men, for their work. And it's been a few years now that I have, since the gangstalking has been increasing so much. Of course, I'm not gonna participate to that program because that's what it is as well. Gangstalkers are following the instruction of the matrix programs. They will do things that are pushing our boundaries. They can be sabotaging something that we are building. They can be not respecting the instructions we are giving them. They can be trying to push or intrude on boundaries that have been set. And it doesn't feel nice to feel harassed in our homes. And it can increase the level of anxiety and stress because it's just in front of our doors and it's just invading our space. Harassment is meant to distract us from other things that we would like to be focusing on and sabotaging the frequency that we are working on building, for sure. One of the aim, especially of harassment, is to trigger and violate our boundaries. Harasser will do things that are weird. We're wondering, what is it about this time? And we can recognize the energy of a stalker in the frequency they are carrying and how it is affecting our energy field. It can also trigger a sense of unsafety that has something to do with the MK Ultra programs. as an original spark here, you know, you have been facing a lot of torture, that is mind torture, emotional, psychological, spiritual, physical torture in your life. It's a component of our experience here, how it's designed to provide different kinds of experience. Fortunately, it's not all that there is here in store for us. And to understand this, that gangstalking and harassing and targeting are parts of our everyday realities here, we have, you know, you have to be someone who is aware of your own targeting. You have to be someone who is aware that it's something that you are experiencing in your corner of reality on an everyday basis. And you have to have practice awareness in order to identify and to recognize these frequencies that are going on, that are interfering with your rhythm, that are trying to sabotage you, that are trying to have an effect on your body, your mind, and your consciousness. And generally, it's not something that the spiritless can validate, and it's also not something that most of the real original spark are able to validate, and they will often be used for gaslighting. That's unfortunately how it goes. Right? There is a tricky programming that I've seen coming up for me. It's I have to help people who are requesting my help, or including the ones who are gangstalking me, my handlers, people who are sabotaging me or harassing me. And it's part of the deprogramming journey to refuse to help beings who are used repetitively for sabotage, handling, and who are used negatively in our lives, so we can refocus. And sometimes you have to catch yourself and decide that you no longer are going to adopt the same automatic, teleguided, unreal behaviors where you forgive endlessly and you give another chance. I think it's easier to start with the spiritless, and it gets harder with handlers where you have bonded deeply. So it takes more work of awareness in these cases. Fortunately, there are ways to limit this harassment reaching us in our corners of reality. It comes with the decisions to find a solution. There are many change of behaviors that we can be adopting, so we can limit the amount of intrusions that is getting in. We can, if we feel we're on a sensitive day, we can decide not answering the door, turning off our phone or on airplane mode, reducing access that we are granting to people through the different means they can be reaching us, through phone calls, through notifications. You can restrain and limit or block different address, so you're not taken hostage by the fact they arrive in your mailbox. And it's already easier if they end up in the spam folder, because you do remember, yet you already have taken this decision not to be reading them anymore. So it really helps to stay clear and not engage in these communications that are keeping you hostage in a drama setting, for example. So there are plenty of solutions around us for us to connect with, to find. We have heavy programming for us not to connect to the solutions, but I know that as me, you are, you know, reconnecting and repatterning your own brain, so it becomes more and more user-friendly. And it makes this, it makes some of the experience much more bearable as well. And we also have to be resisting sometimes the curiosity and the bonds that we have that have to do with our own programming, and choose the mature path for ourselves, and get rewarded with, a little bit more peace of mind.